Even by rock and roll standards, the Red Hot Chili Peppers' ride to stardom has been a wild one.
Losing band members, having band members quit, join, disappear, show up, take off in the middle of a tour. On good days, there's a lot of chaos in this band.
Formed by a group of Hollywood high school troublemakers, the Peppers started as a joke.
I think I saw the first Red Hot Chili Peppers show, which was one song and about a minute and a half long.
And soon the band had a reputation for mayhem, both on and off the stage.
Wherever we would go, club owners would say, "You're going to do the thing with the sock tonight, right?"
But the mayhem had a dark side too. The Peppers have battled drug addiction for almost as long as they've been a band.
After Hillel, I was like, I don't really want to go to any more junkie funerals.
If it's not working now, add heroin and cocaine, it's for sure not going to work. You know what I'm saying?
But through it all, lead singer Anthony Kiedis and bass guitarist Flea Balzery somehow managed to keep the whole thing together.
Anthony had determination and charisma. Flea had charisma and discipline.
Birth, death, rebirth, redemption, rinse, repeat. The hair-raising highs and lows of the Red Hot Chili Pepper. On the night of February 11th, 2007, the Red Hot Chili Peppers bounded onto the Staples Center stage at the 49th Annual Grammy Awards 4 times to collect the little gold statuettes. They'd been nominated for 6 awards, and their longtime producer, Rick Rubin, also won for Producer of the Year.
The whole world got to watch the Red Hot Chili Peppers attain ultimate greatness, you know?
The funk punk band of former Misfits also performed their latest hit, Snow, before the crowd of music industry luminaries.
They've been around for decades, and they hadn't really gotten that much acknowledgement from the music establishment.
The fact that they've been triumphant and been able to come out on the other end of all the things that they've been through and make great music is one of the greatest rock and roll stories ever.
It's a story that began, fittingly, in a place that is no stranger to rock and roll legend. The hallways of West Hollywood's Fairfax High practically echo with music history. Famous former students include Warren Zevon, Phil Spector, Herb Alpert, and Guns N' Roses guitarist Slash. In 1977, Anthony Kiedis, Jack Irons, and Hillel Slovak entered Fairfax as freshmen, along with a kid named Michael Balzery, nicknamed Mike B. the Flea. No one could have imagined this awkward, unpopular group of guys would one day join the list of famous Fairfax High alumni.
I guess it's a classic LA story more than anything else. Anthony, Flea, Hillel Slovak were all sort of crazy, freak, misfit, skate, punk, music freaks in Los Angeles.
Anthony Kiedis was born in Michigan, but moved to LA to live with his father when he was 11.
His father was a sort of wild party guy, and he would take Anthony out with him, you know, to go out and get wasted, and he was the one who introduced Anthony to drugs and had him involved in crazy sex situations very early in life.
Some of his early drug experiences were in the presence of his father, which I think he thought was kind of a bonding experience initially, but realized later was kind of disorienting.
Hillel Slovak, Jack Irons, and Michael Flea Balzery had more conventional upbringings. Flea's stepfather played in a jazz band, and by the time Flea reached high school, he was an accomplished musician.
He started playing trumpet very young. He was very into jazz and into more avant-garde music, and then into punk as more of an expression of that.
By the late 70s, LA's punk rock scene was in full swing.
Seeing the punk rock in the clubs and stuff like all up and down the Sunset Strip, it was pretty wild, man, you know.
Hardcore punk thing was happening, post-punk thing, and synth rock, and there was a lot of stuff going on in that period.
The boys graduated high school in 1980. By this time, Flea, Hillel, and Jack Irons had formed a band called Anthem and were playing some of LA's clubs. They, along with Anthony Kiedis, were all part of a loose bunch of friends who hung out and jammed all day and partied all night.
You know, it was many parties where Flea would be the first to take his clothes off and jump in the swimming pool naked, and I'd jump right behind him.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know? There were many parties where that was the case. Lots of getting naked
there were also lots of drugs.
These guys were living in a house together in California, in this little house, and they were getting really messed up all the time, and they were not paying their rent. So the woman who owned the house took the doors off the house. The guys were so messed up at the time, they lived in the house for 2 more months with no doors on it. They actually continued to live in the house, till finally one day they said, "Hey man, there's no doors on this house. Maybe we should get out of here."
For the first few years out of high school, the guys just drifted around LA and West Hollywood, staying with girlfriends or crashing on couches. About the only constant was the bond between Flea and Anthony.
When we go out to a club or a party, we would see them together. They were homies, you know, almost like brothers from what we could see.
Like minds will find each other, especially at that time of your life, and these guys became just stuck like glue, running partners together and hanging out and skateboarding and messing around and whatever they did.
And while Anthony wasn't an accomplished musician like Flea, he was a natural performer.
Anthony just wanting to be in the spotlight somehow, whatever that was going to be. And he was sort of messing around writing some raps and writing some, you know, rhymes and things.
They listened to rock and they listened to punk, but there was a lot of Sly and the Family Stone, a lot of Hendrix, a lot of Stevie Wonder.
Anthony especially was into funk, as well as some of the early rappers like Grandmaster Flash. But at the time, the other three were in a rock and roll band. Anthem, eventually renamed What Is This, had by the early 80s become regulars at LA clubs like the Troubadour, the Whiskey, and the Starwood. Anthony often DJ'd before their shows, and they all partied together after.
In Los Angeles, there was this real blending and merging and mixing and matching of different musics.
And on one fateful night in April of 1983, Anthony Kiedis was asked to join his buddies from What Is This on stage.
Anthony was this wild personality. Somebody just said, "Hey, can you get up and do one song to get the crowd hyped at this show? You know, can you come to the club and just do this one thing to get things moving?"
That one song would provide the spark that would ignite one of the most highly combustible rock and roll bands in the world. In the early 1980s, Fairfax High School graduates and friends Michael Flea Balzery, Hillel Slovak, and Jack Irons were members of an LA rock band called What Is This? Although he wasn't in the band, another friend from high school, Anthony Kiedis, hung out with the guys and was a regular fixture on the LA club scene, DJing and occasionally putting together outrageous comedy sketches with friends.
He was not a musician, but he did have these guys around him who were, you know, who were musicians.
Then in April of 1983, the owner of the Rhythm Lounge in LA asked Anthony to put together a short musical performance to get the crowd going before a show. Flea, Slovak, and Irons helped him write and perform a defunct-style rap song he named Out in LA. It was 2 minutes of loud, fast, outrageous punk-funk mayhem, and the crowd went wild.
One song and about a minute and a half long. It was an audience of about 50 people that just went berserk. They loved it.
Anthony knew how to be a front man, and he knew how to be a showman, and he knew how to get everybody to watch him and just go nuts.
The club owner asked him and his friends to come back when they had some more material, which they did a few weeks later.
The next show was maybe 3 or 4 songs, still very short, and there was twice as many people. They built a following very quickly.
It's white funk trash. It's great. I love it.
With their popularity growing, the group decided a name was in order. They chose the Red Hot Chili Peppers, after the Robert Johnson song, They're Red Hot.
When the Red Hot Chili Peppers first broke out and began to play around Los Angeles, those shows were loose and crazy, and there was a lot of antics.
They were an extremely wild live act, you know, just jumping all over the stage and into the audience, and just the loudest punk funk you could imagine.
Even though nobody, including the band members themselves, actually took the band seriously, in a matter of months, they were playing in bigger clubs and had even begun to attract the attention of the local music press.
We would read about the Red Hot Chili Peppers in the magazines that were hip. Like the LA Weekly seemed to love them.
And there was also like a local